Hey y'all, hey, I'm Naila and this is Girl What You Reading, and today we are going to take a look at Someday Maybe. Someday Maybe by Anye Nwabineli. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly because it is not an easy name. And I always like for people to pronounce their own names for me so that I can hear it and I can get it right. But that's difficult to do when reading, so we got to deal with what we got, right? Anyway, this book was the last one I read for March. It came out late last year, and I had read some great reviews and watched an interview with the author. So I thought, I'll give this book a read. This book is pretty heartbreaking, though. The main character, Eve, is a Nigerian woman who lives in London with her husband, who suddenly commits suicide. And he leaves no note or anything. So she's left trying to pick up all of these pieces and trying to figure out what happened because, there were no signs. And her husband was somewhat like royalty. And so her mother-in-law treats her horribly because she never felt like Eve was even good enough to be with her son. So now that he's gone, she's kind of blaming Eve a little bit. So Eve takes on all of her grief, seemingly by herself, not realizing how much of a support system she actually has because she doesn't have the support of the one person who understands what she's going through. But she does have all of her family and friends who remind her that he's not as perfect as you're making him out to be. But that does tend to happen when somebody dies. You want to put them on that pedestal, and then she finds out that she's pregnant, and she starts questioning if she'll be a good mother because she couldn't even keep her husband alive, and she's going through all that stuff with his mother at this point. So all of those things are in her ear. But this story isn't a very story-driven book. It's more of a character analysis. It's more like this is who Eve is, and this is who the people around her are, and this is who her husband was, and how all of those things mix in together. So I do appreciate that she didn't just touch on suicide and grief. She also touched on racism, international marriage, intercultural marriage, classism, and the dynamics between in-laws. But even though her mom-in-law was much harsher than most mother-in-laws, a lot of the stuff I was like, well, that's just in-law stuff. So it is what it is. I gave this story a 4.5 star rating because I do appreciate what she did. She added in oboe, she added in the culture, she added in the food, and I also feel like I do love a story that's going to move me, and this one definitely did. It's very heartbreaking, and it's a tearjerker, so be careful with it. But it doesn't just deal with grief. And then she said that in the interview, she said that she wrote this about a friend of hers and who went through something similar. And I can definitely feel that jumping off of the pages. It's definitely a love story to that friend. It's a love story to Eve, telling her to give herself some grace, It's a very heavy and topical book. That's why I still do give it a 4.5 star rating. But it's not very story driven, which confuses me sometimes. But yeah, during the book, you just want to hug Eve and say, you know what? You're still here. You still matter. And everything's going to be okay. So that's why I love the story. But until next time, we'll see you then.